Okay, so what I want to do now is to go through a bit more about the general structure of the book. Now, as Don told you, the book is intended as a self-help guide for people with troublesome tinnitus. If you have tinnitus but it's not bothering you, then don't expect the book to be of much help. It's if your tinnitus is causing you problems, that's who the book is intended for. And it provides an alternative to treatment by a therapist or a clinical specialist in situations where waiting lists are long or help is not readily available. And as Don said, some of you may have had the experience of going to your GP and being told, oh, there's nothing we can do about it, go on your way. Some GPs will try to refer you to a specialist clinic, but there aren't many of those around. Waiting lists are quite long. So this is intended to let you try for yourself to get a grip on your tinnitus. So the general aims of going through the program described in the book are to get some relief from tinnitus distress that lasts a long time and is realistic. It's not based on false hope. We don't promise that at the end you won't have any tinnitus anymore. You'll still have your tinnitus, but you'll be better able to deal with it. And this depends on something changing within yourself, changing your own thought processes and reactions and how you deal with the tinnitus. And generally, we hope that this gives you the chance to be a more resilient and confident human being. The starting point, as Don said, is that there are at present no cures for tinnitus. You can't get a pill which is going to make it go away. Except in very, very rare cases, there's no surgery that you can have that will make it go away. So what we're trying to do with the book is to help you to manage your own reactions to the tinnitus. And throughout the book, we include worksheets that can help you as a sufferer to understand your own reactions to tinnitus and to identify whether or not those reactions are realistic. And often these worksheets will help to illustrate that your reactions at present, if you're bothered by your tinnitus, are not always realistic. You expect things to happen that maybe won't happen. You expect bad consequences that maybe don't happen. And there are also questionnaires in the book that can help a person with a tinnitus to assess the severity of their reactions to tinnitus and to monitor their progress. So you may want to fill in these questionnaires at different stages as you work through the book to see how well you're doing. And you may be surprised that the results indicate you are indeed making progress. And as was briefly mentioned in Hashia's response to Don, all of these questionnaires can be downloaded from the publisher's website, so you can have them as sheets. You don't have to write in the book necessarily. You can print out these sheets, and then you can print out as many as you want, so you can take them over and over. And the book is organized in 10 steps, and each step is illustrative with metaphors, real-life examples, and characters from history and fiction. We hope this makes it easier to remember some of the lessons in the book and makes it more entertaining, and it also helps to illustrate that you're not alone. Throughout history, there are people who've suffered from tinnitus, and some have developed their own ways of dealing with it. Some never did manage to deal with it. But you have to realize you're not alone. Many people are going through the same thing as you. So step one is just to learn about tinnitus. This provides basic information about tinnitus. As Don said, it's rather brief. We try to answer the common questions that people with tinnitus ask when they come to the clinic. We try to deal with some common misperceptions about tinnitus, misconceptions, and we try to help you make sense of the experience of tinnitus. And tinnitus is often associated with hearing problems, so we also give some information about when you should seek help for hearing problems. And we include questionnaires that help you to decide whether you might have a hearing problem, and if so, you should seek help for that, separately from dealing with your problems with tinnitus. As Don said, it's an open issue of whether someone could have a completely normal auditory system and still have tinnitus, and there's still debate about that. Some people believe that tinnitus is always associated with some kind of slight disorder of the auditory system, but not necessarily one that's revealed by the audiogram, or at least the conventional audiogram. And finally, in this chapter, we give some examples of the kind of thoughts and reactions that people can have in response to their tinnitus. And you can evaluate for yourself how well you think these match with your own reactions and bothersome thoughts. So step 2 in the book is self-assessment. This step has the aim of helping us to evaluate our own experience of tinnitus and its symptoms and the extent to which these affect us. How much are they bothering us in everyday life? And this can help to decide whether to go further in the book. You might decide, well, actually, my tinnitus isn't so bad, I can handle it okay. And in that case, you may not need to work through the whole book. On the other hand, your tinnitus may be bothersome, and in this step of self-assessment, we help you to decide whether you really need help from a medical practitioner or if you can deal with this on your own by working through the book. And in this step, we provide several questionnaires that assess different aspects of tinnitus. One is the impact of tinnitus on you as an individual, your sensitivity to sounds in general, oversensitivity to sounds, which is called hyperacusis. This is where moderately loud sounds are bothersome to you, but they don't seem to bother the other people around you. Quite a lot of people with tinnitus have hyperacusis as well, but the two don't necessarily go together. There are also questionnaires about assessing the extent to which you have anxiety and depression, which often accompany tinnitus, and the extent to which you have hearing problems, where you might seek help to assess the origin of the hearing problem, maybe to get hearing aids. The third step is learning about CBT. What actually is CBT? So we explain the theoretical basis of cognitive behavioral therapy and why and how it's relevant to managing tinnitus. And CBT is based on a specific way of thinking about the distress caused by tinnitus, and Don gave a very nice overview of that with diagrams of these feedback charts. And in CBT, we think about how to treat tinnitus in terms of the interactions between our thoughts and our emotional and behavioral reactions to them. And this involves the limbic system, as Don said, the part of the brain that deals with emotions, not so much with conscious reasoning out of things, but something that happens more automatically, but which depends on our interpretation of the tinnitus or of outside stimuli in general. And learning about CBT can help you to understand how it might be useful in managing your tinnitus, how going through a program of CBT might help you to manage your tinnitus. Okay, the next step, which Hashia calls it testing the water, this is where you're first putting your toe into the water and seeing if you like it or not. So this involves trying out some of the CBT skills to get a sense of how this might work. And these skills involve tackling avoidance behaviors and rituals and facing our fears. And so, for example, if your tinnitus stops you from getting to sleep, you might have a pillow sound generator or a bedside sound generator that plays some soothing sounds and maybe helps you to get to sleep. But one of the things we want you to do in practicing CBT is to get to sleep without using aids like this, to see if you can manage it on your own without artificial aids. So to face your fears, in other words. And by testing whether you have these skills, you can decide if CBT is something that you want to pursue. And this step also helps you to identify your key troublesome thoughts to do with tinnitus. We call these your hot thoughts, things that are dominating your thought processes. And we also talk a bit about when to practice cognitive behavioral therapy. So step 5 is finally moving on to the central part of actually trying out cognitive behavioral therapy and taking part, self-administering cognitive behavioral therapy. And in this step, you can take stock of what you've achieved so far in dealing with tinnitus via these questionnaires that you're taking as you go along, and to identify where things might be improved. And this step includes a questionnaire that can be used to self-evaluate your own confidence in managing your tinnitus and how you might improve that confidence. And this questionnaire is actually a new questionnaire that was developed by Hashir and his co-workers specifically to be a part of this kind of program where you can see how your confidence is changing over time. And filling in this questionnaire helps you to reflect on how confident you are in carrying out your day-to-day tasks, resting and relaxing and enjoying life without using any distraction or avoidance. And the questionnaire helps you to think about what you might be able to do to become more confident in doing these things. Now, step 6 involves customizing your treatment to suit yourself based on your own particular thought processes and emotions that are evoked by your tinnitus. So the idea is to create a model of a CBT model that's explaining why you're distressed by your tinnitus based on these various vicious circles that occur that Don talked about. And the model can differ from one person to the next. People can be anxious about different aspects of their tinnitus, troubled more about some aspects than other. And this model can be used to describe our own tinnitus distress by writing down our thoughts, our emotions, our bodily sensations and behaviours, how we react to all these things. And this provides another opportunity to think about which parts of the vicious cycle can be changed or modified. And this chapter includes a worksheet to explore personal and life factors that may have contributed to the initial reaction to tinnitus. How did you become bothered by it in the first places, and are there things in your life at the time or earlier that made you react in a particular way? So then we come to really practicing the cognitive behavioral therapy, and this step is called SEL. Sorry, another abbreviation. I know maybe we have too many abbreviations, but stop, avoidance, expose and learn is what we have in this chapter. So this step is teaching us to avoid avoidance behaviours and rituals, expose ourselves to our tinnitus and learn from that experience. And during this process of SEL, we practice controlling our urges to use background noise or other distractions or rituals when hearing tinnitus, exposing ourselves to what we're afraid of, and learning if we can tolerate the uncomfortable feelings that tinnitus might produce. And most people find that when they do expose themselves to a feared situation, it's actually not as bad as they thought it would be. And this is measured quantitatively by these questionnaires because you predict how bad it's going to be for you in a particular situation, and then later on you assess how bad it actually was when you faced that fearful situation and went through it. And simply by experiencing anxiety, irritation and sadness evoked by our tinnitus, we can improve our tolerance of these bad feelings and learn to deal with them. Now, this step is called Let the Sunshine In, step 8, and the idea is to turn what you've learned so far from the SEL stage into an antidote for our troublesome thoughts. And a crucial part of this is creating counter statements that are used to neutralize the negative tinnitus-related thoughts. People who are bothered by their tinnitus have a lot of negative thoughts about the tinnitus and what it will do to them, how it will affect their ability to sleep or do their job or enjoy life. And in this step, the idea is to create counter-statements that neutralize some of these negative thoughts, that show these thoughts aren't always right, there are exceptions to them. And these counter-statements have to have certain properties. They have to be relative to the negative thought that you're having, but contradictory to that thought. They have to be positively worded, and we have to be able to believe in them themselves. And this chapter helps you to make up your own counter-statements to fit in with your own particular beliefs and feelings about tinnitus. And this step can help us to blow away the dark clouds of negative thoughts and let the sun shine in. And these were words used by one of the patients who was attending Hashir's clinic. So that's where we got this phrase from, of letting the sun shine in. Okay, then there's the final stage. Gloves are off, as tinnitus put it, as Hashir put it. So this step is called KISS, keep on, identify, and substitute. So this step is teaching you when to do CBT, which is whenever tinnitus is interrupting our activities or affecting our mood. It helps us to keep on in dealing with the negative emotions. It helps us to identify our negative thoughts about tinnitus and to substitute them with counter statements. So that's the KISS stage, another abbreviation. And it also helps us to revisit some of our rules of life and basic beliefs about ourselves and life in general. And it helps us to realize that some of these rigid rules of life are not always correct or productive or helpful, and you need to think about revising those rules of life. And step 9 helps you to do it. And then the last step, which we call CBT style, is about integrating CBT into your lifestyle, how to use it in everyday life to maintain your progress and to prepare for setbacks. And setbacks are part of normal life, and that's true of tinnitus as well. And if we're prepared, then it's less likely for these setbacks to escalate into a full-blown relapse. So setback might occur if you have a stressful event in your life, a relative died, or you've had to change job or move house. All these stressful things maybe lead to a temporary worsening in your tinnitus and your anxiety about it and the extent to which you're bothered by it. And so you need to be prepared to deal with those setbacks. And the main action is to resuscitate your CBT skills, or to make sure those skills are not forgotten in the first place, and to be ready to practice them quickly as needed. And so this step teaches you how to integrate these skills that you have learned about CBT into your own lifestyle. And I'll finish just by giving you a quote from one of our patients, where this patient talked about blowing away the tide of tinnitus distress. And she said, previously I'd been experiencing this tide, this huge tsunami of negativity, suffering, pain and anguish and everything, right from the time that my tinnitus started. Now I feel confident to blow away the tide. I don't need to avoid my tinnitus. Instead, I can use CBT to control my reaction to it, and it's a change from within. So that's what we're aiming to achieve after you've worked through the book. And I want to emphasize that you do need to work through the book in a sequence. It's best not to leap around from one chapter, but to read the book in a sequence. And it's best to take enough time over each step. Don't think that you can go through this in a few days, read it like a novel. You need to practice each step and become confident with it before you go on to the next. And that is most likely to lead to success in the long term.